Hello, folks, and welcome back to our discussion on the Silmarillion. We are in the Quenta Silmarillion now, and one of the early stories of Aulë and Yavanna. It's a short one, but like all things Silmarillion, it's packed with implications and is fertile for discussion. So we're sticking to this short section today, but we will also have perhaps some questions about the Silmarillion overall, and we love to entertain those as well. So bottom line, we're going to have a good time talking about Tolkien and looking forward to it. I have three ladies with me today, and this will be a fun discussion here. First, I'll introduce Liza Sahido from the Psyche Electroacoustic Opera Company. Hello, how are
Uh,
you doing today?
Hello. Doing good. Doing good.
Good. I
Excited
know
about
you have some
today.
materials to share with us.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be
Oh,
sure to
yes.
show those when the time comes. Right now, I am kind of anxious because we do have a panelist that has some good news to share, and
Yes.
she's excited to do so. So I'm going to save her for last. But right now, our who has been our rock star in all these presentations, we
Yes.
do have Anna Nielsen, who is very knowledgeable about her Tolkien, and the Silmarillion is definitely one of
Gavin.
her shall we say interests as a very knowledgeable Renaissance lady. Basically, she's. I mean, I. She won't want me to say it, but I think she's a genius. But anyway, here we go.
I am no man.
I'm
Awesome.
intimidated with the lady power today.
Good morning or
Good
evening.
morning. Well, good
Afternoon.
morning for you. Anna is joining us from Japan. It's 5 a.m. there, so please, folks.
Oof.
Yep,
Ooh.
that's me, Japana.
Yeah, she is. We really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Always great to be here. Always glad to talk about the Silmarillion.
All right. And also, this lady, you probably know her. She has her own channel, and I'm going to let her share the good news. But she's also been doing some Tolkien of late and stuff. So we're going to be talking to her about that for a little bit here, too. Please welcome back to the channel, Anti-Derivative Jill.
Somehow I feel comfortable here.
Oh, I love that.
We're glad you feel comfortable here, Jill.
I do. This is wonderful. This is great. And it's good to see you all. And yes, the good news is that I have been remonetized by YouTube after 90 days.
Yes.
After getting hit with inauthentic content. But
Ugh.
it's
You're
just
so
a good feeling.
clearly not a real person.
I know. How could I possibly be real? How could this possibly be my copy of the Silmarillion? And it is damaged by kitty cat damage right there.
There you
that's my
go.
cat.
Definitely
Well,
not AI.
I said yay in the chat and I put in our Londo emoji. This is not Londo Malari from Babylon 5. This is Londo, our cat, a snowshoe.
Londo Morhido.
Oh,
Yeah, he's a Siamese snowshoe.
I also have a Kindle.
So, yes, Jill, you've been. Oh, should I put you up on big screen here? Sorry, too busy
You don't have
typing in the
to.
chat.
You don't have to, but I could show you the cat damage a little more closely.
Oh,
There you
battle
go.
scars.
That'll start, yeah. And for my Silmarillion and my
Oh, is that the one illustrated by Ted Nesmith?
yeah, it's got beautiful pictures in it. Yeah.
He's a fantastic artist.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, this is I'm just picking one. So there you go.
Oh yeah.
He often shows up to one of the I suppose sort of local comic cons to me, and I linger around his booth and listen to him talk to clients, or not clients, just the people who've come to ask about art, and he's so knowledgeable.
Here's one relevant to today.
Yes.
Oh, hold on. Let me get that up.
Yeah. We don't need to
usual.
talk about it yet, but you know what this is.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have the AI version. As folks know, I tend to use the AI. Anna did recommend that
Yeah.
I look to some of the artwork that's out there like this and just do proper attribution. I guess I'm just a little scared. I just don't want to get a knock at the door from the copyright police. And so
That's fair. I knocked out all my copyright claims before I reapplied, and so maybe that was part of how I got back. I don't know.
I don't think so, Jill.
I
I
don't
think
think
it's
so.
still, I mean, because I have the copyright claims there, they're happy just taking your monetization for the claimant, you know.
Mhm.
I don't think that's a problem. I think it was just a big mistake. Never underestimate the the lack of competence in some of these,
Mhm.
you know, media
True.
platforms.
Definitely not human reviewed, and we know from experience that AI makes tons of errors. OMG.
Yeah,
They've
well, so
made a
do
lot
I,
of
but it's
errors.
different ones.
It's just the irony of like an AI misattribution claiming that your content is not generated by a
Yeah.
human, and of course there's no recourse.
No, there was no recourse, not for me, not unless you're a really big channel and you have an agent. Then
Right.
and
Yeah,
that
or-
big, I mean,
And even
Yeah.
for big channels, they often have to tweet at YouTube on Twitter and use the power of their fans to, you know, once you've got a post with 12,000 likes, then someone might actually review it. And it's like, are there no YouTube employees who can pay attention before then, and anyone else who doesn't have that kind of social media clout? It's ridiculous that that has to be the channel in the first place. Like that's the only access to real humans.
yeah.
It benefits YouTube not to monetize you because they put ads on our stuff
Not in
anyways.
this
I'm not
case.
monetized.
Not in this case. Like, I'm sorry to keep repeating this, but Jill, probably the portion that you earn or earned in the past every month from ad revenue is probably more than compensated for by YouTube's cut of your memberships
Yeah, that's
and
right.
super
Okay,
chat.
I see.
By
So
demonetizing me, they
They're
get like
losing
5%
money
of
by
what I used to get.
demonetizing you.
Yeah. True story. But part of what I did was I touched up a lot of my thumbnails and updated metadata. Apparently that's important. Your title your title and your thumbnails can't be repetitive. They've got to have like
Mine are.
descriptions and stuff. I don't know. Like maybe it doesn't matter.
I mean, I change them a bit,
Maybe I
but like in my
maybe I did all this
tutorials,
nothing.
yes, this is learning synthesis with VCV Rack part 1, part
Mhm.
2, part 3. You know, I put a little subject after that, but I mean, yeah,
Oh,
I
the
put the
subject
title
though.
of
The
the
subject
series.
changes it. So the subject is good.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and part of my front page was my Lord of the Rings videos because I'm learning Lord of the Rings. I read it before, but this time actually analyzing it and talking to Tiger Stripes about it, and it's been
Yeah.
so much fun. And I was happy to be here today so I could finally get into the Silmarillion to get a deeper understanding of Tolkien's world. And I kind of read the previous chapters and then got to this one and read this one a little more slowly.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, is there anything more
Yeah.
you want to say about your Lord of the Rings series?
yeah, I've been working through them. I got up to chapter 12 in terms of videos I pushed out, but we're in book 3 actually recording, so I'm way ahead in the reading and just I don't know, just enjoying myself doing that. Scotty
Yeah.
R37 was in 2 of them, but that was it. It's just me and Tiger Stripes.
Yeah, every
And
time
yeah.
you reread it, you do notice, well, yeah, it's different
Mhm.
than the Peter Jackson films, even though the Lord of the Rings, we generally do say, yeah, it was great to have them. It's
Mhm.
different.
Definitely different. Yeah, it's for sure.
I need
And
to catch up on the discussions you two have been doing, because I I'm also rereading The Lord of the Rings right now, but I'm doing it in French, and I'm actually not a big fan of the French translation. I think it's pretty bad in spots. But it's
Wow.
reminding me how much I love The Lord of the Rings and how much I love Tolkien's prose. And so I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it.
Yeah. The one with Scotty was especially fun. As Gavin says, bombadillo is a word that Scotty R37 came up with, but it kind of fits with Tom Bombadil, and
Bombadita, bombadita,
and it's
bombadita.
I can read Lord of the Rings just fine, but the Silmarillion is a little thick. There's a lot of stuff here,
Well,
and
you're in
sometimes I'm like,
great
hey,
company.
I recognize this word, but the rest of the sentence, what is happening?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like 5 names for one thing, and it's tough. But we have Anna here, so I think since we've done like 3 episodes before, we can't review it all. Although today is a short topic. Is there any burning question you have, like for Anna, in your reading thus far?
I have read all about the singing and how the world came into being by song and discord. Like, even though Melkar is kind of, seems to be the evil one, the world wouldn't
Yes.
exist without the trouble he caused, right? And so I think that's kind of interesting. And
Well, yeah, it was
I
all
don't
part
know.
of Ilŭvatar's plan, or Eru's plan. There we go. 2 names for the same.
Yeah.
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 I don't know all the names, so all the names is just I'll have a lot of questions when we get started.
But the thing that's cool about it is like a creation story. It's a whole world building. And yeah, you would
Mhm.
on Earth, we have multiple names from different cultures for similar things. And, so the
Yes,
elves
and then
have a
the
name
elves
for
have
everything.
their
And so
names.
the dwarves and, you know,
It gives a lot of, I mean, you would expect this from a philologist and a linguist like Tolkien, but it gives so much richness to his story. And that's one of the things that people try when writing fantasy nowadays to at least superficially replicate. People love making fantasy names or fantasy words for things, and people will have, a Bible of their fantasy book that they're writing, or they'll use World Forge
mm,
or whatever to try and have maps and to try and have a history to it. And even if that doesn't come out in the novels or the tabletop games or whatever else they're putting together, and even though most people are not going to actually write down a whole conlang or multiple conlangs, constructed languages, people are so inspired by that they
mm-hmm,
want to have even passages that are in a made-up language, and they'll put it into their book because it does give an air of authenticity, of a depth of
mm,
history to any story. And
Yeah, that's
Tolkien does it
my
so well.
favorite franchises are Star Trek and Lord of the Rings for those world building reasons, because in Star Trek, of course, you've got the Klingon language,
Yes.
you do have maps and everything. And so I
mm.
think Lord of the Rings and Star Trek are very similar in that regard. And you've got, of course, Elvish and way more
And
languages. Tolkien's got way more languages.
both franchises have armies of
Yeah.
dedicated fans who sit down and learn
Mhm.
the languages, and who go on online forums and write books and
Mhm.
expand beyond what's simply in canon materials.
Well, yeah, I think that's why people, when building their own worlds, I mean, they usually probably begin as fans of something else like Star Trek or Tolkien. And part of the love is, I want to build this world and I'll do it before the fans get to it. You know what I mean? And it's like they're doing it for fun. And in that spirit, I know, Liza, you have some things to share here, showing your love
No, I
for
just wanted to
Tolkien.
ask Jill before we get in back to
Okay.
Tolkien if she has a conversational Klingon. I had a CD long time ago. Me and my brother were like on it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I have the dictionary, but I don't have that. I don't have that one.
Oh, it was so cool. It was Michael Dorn, and he was teaching you how to speak Klingon.
Oh my
It was
goodness. I'm gonna go get it
glorious.
immediately after this stream.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I have a few
Yeah.
credits on Audible I could try.
I am very easily enabled to buy books. So
Oh
that's
gosh, Lawrence, I should have. It didn't occur to me, but you should see if it's on Amazon and include it as an affiliate link whenever we do Star Trek stuff.
you should.
Oh yeah.
That would be cool.
Well,
I'll
we
wait
are
till y'all do
thinking
that and
of
I'll buy it.
doing DS9. I mean, to balance out the Babylon
Yeah,
5.
I want to
And
do
it-
DS9.
To start, just me and Liza, because we have a lot that we like to
Oh,
talk
if
about.
if you guys
But
want to
yeah,
hop
Jill,
on the
you always welcome.
DS9,
Yeah.
you know, if you ladies
Mm.
want to hop on DS9,
Well,
yeah, let's do it.
Jill is the hardest working woman in show business, so
Yeah.
I know
Yeah, I
you guys
am
are
going
very
on
busy.
vacation.
Yeah.
I'm going away from the 7th to the 17th. So
You
this
deserve it.
yeah. Yeah. definitely
but no,
deserve
Liza,
enough
I
time.
was referencing to the media you have here.
Oh, the Mead. Yes.
Media. Oh yeah, and mead. Yeah.
The Mead Media. Yes.
Oh,
So
wow.
I know that would have been simpler to call it Aulë and Yavanna, Ilŭvatar, if I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but I preferred to call this mead Star of Yavana mead. And so I went with this version, Elena Yavanova Miruvore. I couldn't wrap my head around how to,
How
do
to
this
literally
and
say starfruit.
yeah, well, no,
Right,
how to
yeah.
write it out. But the mead apparently it's Miruvore, and so here it is in, I guess, our alphabet, and then underneath is how Tolkien had it in a passage somewhere. I forgot where I got this from, but this was from some Tolkien forum, and where that dot is, that's mead, supposedly.
Which dot?
The gray.
Oh, the
in
great.
the
Okay, I
bar.
see.
Yeah. So
That's correct.
Cool
Yeah.
beans.
Wow,
Now-
that's some good research there too. That's
So
amazing.
this was a
You can go
gift for this was a gift for one of my late professors who was one of the most passionate musicologists I've ever met, and also one of the most passionate Tolkien fans you'll ever meet. And so I made this for him, and I wanted to get this right. So but yeah,
Yeah, he was from Hungary,
yes.
and unfortunately he passed.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I guess less than a year ago.
Yeah. But yeah, this was his mead. And
That he composed a piece for the two trees. I think
He
in one of our
did.
episodes we'll
Yes.
share that. It's a
I will
great
try
piece.
to find it. Yes, yeah.
And what was it? Was cello and no,
it was
wasn't
cello, flute, and
Oh, yeah.
piano.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh. Of
Yeah.
course, you've got the two trees behind you, Lawrence.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Yes.
Amazon version. Yeah.
Cool beans.
All right. So I'll bring up our slides here. Yeah, AI generated, but I still wanted to put some thought into it. Today we're going to be talking about, well, there are a couple, so we're going to talk about some of their domestic discussions. We have Aulë, who's associated with crafting, building, rocks, the earth, earth as far as rocks are concerned, and Yavana, associated with trees and kind of like the flora and fauna of Arda, which is our earth in Tolkien lore. And basically it begins with Aulë. He is impatient, shall we say, and he was not being patient like all these Valar, which was like the heavenly host. They were there in the beginning during the Ainulindale, when the music of Eru was being composed, and they're all part of it. And Melkor, who became Melkor, was disruptive, discordant in the harmonies, and that bore fruit in Eru's creation, which became Ea, which is life, the universe in general, and then specifically Arda when it came into physical form. So, but the thing is, I guess he got above his station. He didn't want to wait for the children of Eru, or Ilŭvatar, same entity there, who would eventually be the elves. Now, in our reading so far, it's been foreshadowed. So you hear mention of the elves and men and a little bit of dwarves, you know, up to this point. But right now, the point in time where we're at is before the elves. And that was Ilúvatar's plan to be the first children of Arda. And at least, you know, the
One would
Valar are
think
considered
that
children. Yeah, go ahead.
that one would think that Eru would have foreseen that Aule, having the impulses that he had, was going to.
He did.
He did.
And so why I don't understand why he got so upset with Aule if that was supposedly part of his plan. To the
Oh, he
point
wasn't
where
upset
Aule,
though. He was pleased.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Aule thought he would be upset. And we're getting to this.
Oh, okay. I
And,
see.
you know, but it's one of those things where I guess it's Tolkien in his own thoughts, in his own, I wouldn't say, I mean, his own thoughts of God and pondering creation and everything. He takes the approach that, you know, many of us do, that like all things is known to God, like Ilúvatar knows all. He knew it's going to happen. He even knew Melkor is going to happen, but it's all right. Just let it unfold. It's all right, you know. And
This
that's
particular
the spirit.
chapter contains several references to the third chapter of Genesis, if you want to get into it.
Go ahead.
I'll get into it when we get to it, but there's some
Okay.
direct passage quotations, and then the general themes of it are also straight from Genesis.
Mm.
And that's all deliberate on Tolkien's part.
Yeah, I remember. I can't tell you the chapter. You may know, Anna, but in Isaiah, where it's some words spoken kind of like from the perspective of God. It's like, I am your God. I am the creator of all things, and it basically specifically included evil. It's not to say God's intentions are evil, but this was known to God, you know. It's like God knows evil's there and allows it to be. It's part of the
Isaiah
creation.
46, maybe? Um,
Could be.
And this particular
I'm not
god
sure which one
allows
you're getting at, but yes.
defiance.
Yeah.
As
well,
part of his overall plan, and in this case, as part of the song, of the fabric of creation. We can get into that as well in this chapter of like
Sure.
what the song is.
Sure. Please. I mean, because I think the thing here is, it's almost like, shall we say, evil or bad things is part of God's plan, because by experiencing it, it makes things better. You know,
And
truly
music
what
requires
good is.
dissonance. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one of the
Trial
things
by
I really
fire.
liked. Oh, not to get ahead of things, but the way. Actually, I'll leave it, Lawrence. You can go through the
Okay.
content of this short chapter first, and then we'll get into it.
Okay. Well, yeah.
The
Oh, I
interpretation
have a
of the music.
question here.
Go ahead.
They say he says, but fearing that the other Valar might blame his work, he wrought in secret. Okay, so
That was
blame his
Aulë.
work.
Yeah.
The phrasing of blame his work. What does that mean?
Well,
I think he means criticize in this case.
Gotcha.
Well, he's doing something. He's creating children, shall we say, life before Ilúvatar's plan. He kind of knew it, so he hid it away. But he just felt like so impassioned to do it. And he does explain himself before Ilúvatar coming up. He does explain why he did it. It wasn't because it wasn't bad intention. He just wanted to feel the love of a creation. It's almost like wanting to have children, but this is the way a member of the Valar would do it, is to create, but it's above his station, you know?
And in this case, Aule explains that he wants to create beings because, of course, the children of Eru Ilúvatar have already been created, both the elves and the men, actually, but they have been made to sleep because of the corruption of Morgoth that's upon the earth. And so there's no... it's not quite true. There are like beasts on Middle Earth that are in the darkness right now, but there are no living beings that are of the children that have the spirit of Eru Ilúvatar in them. You know, beings that have you what you could say like the souls of humans and elves and things. There are no beings to witness the creations of Ilŭvatar and give glory to them. And Aulë, he does this fully out of humility, which is something that Eru notes and is pleased by, is the humility of Aulë. It is Aulë's nature to create, and that is something that Ilŭvatar understands intimately, but Aulë only wants to create things that give glory to Eru, and he wants to create, in this case, animate beings that can reflect the glory of Ilŭvatar and can behold these creations and can give praise for them. And of course, since Aulë can't create in and of himself, he can make these bodies for these beings, the seven fathers of the dwarves, which unfortunately we don't know any of their names besides Durin. Tolkien didn't write any of the names of the other fathers of the dwarves down, although we know which clans they're fathers of, at least. But Aulë of himself can't give them spirits and give them free will and agency, and so it's explained that unless Aulë is paying attention to them, they'll just kind of stand idle, unable to move of their own. But in the moment that Ilŭvatar perceives that Aulë has done this, which is part of the music, although Aulë didn't realize at the time, Ilŭvatar is pleased and has actually given the dwarves spirits and animacy and free will of their own, because they have become the children of his adoption.
Well, they got spirits, but in reading Lord of the Rings, I learned that they don't have souls. Like, their souls are hidden somewhere in the earth. Is that right?
Well, that's what the elves think, I think.
Yes, that's what the elves think, and that's not what the dwarves think. And as far as if we can get from reading this as scripture, as the real being would be the souls of the dwarves, like that of the elves and the men, come directly from Ilŭvatar. These are children of his as well, although children of his adoption, not children of his choice, as he'll say at the end of this chapter. And we'll get into it in the next chapter as perhaps the origin of the orcs and what they are, but that they are in fact perhaps corrupted, captured forms of primeval elves that ran away, or that were, became separated from the first elves when they awoke, and they were captured by Morgoth, and they were taken to his fortress of Angband. They were taken by Sauron at that point, by Mairon, and they were tortured and twisted and perhaps turned into orcs. That's put forward as one perhaps potential origin for them, and that still they have spirits and eternal, like an essence that was made by Ilŭvatar, because of course Morgoth can't create animate life of his own. He can only corrupt it. But we'll get into that next time.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a Tolkien quote we all know.
But
Yes.
that's why
Only destroy.
that line that you mentioned, Anna, that Eru did say these were children of his adoption, not of his choice. That's why I thought that he was upset with Aulë at first, because, I mean, supposedly everything is a part of his plan, but then he did not choose to have these children. It seemed kind of harsh, and that's what led to Aulë wanting to destroy the
Right
dwarves.
here. Well, he didn't want to. He just felt so ashamed that he's like, oh, now the father, shall we say, Ilŭvatar, he's upset with what I did. I feel ashamed. I'm just going to destroy him. But it's almost, and I know it's not a parallel, but it's just seeing him with the hammer here like this. Of course, it's AI generated, but it's great, that piece of art that you showed, Jill. It looks similar. Just holding that hammer aloft is almost like I get visions of like Abraham,
No, for sure. This is what he wanted to paint in your mind, because, yeah, for sure.
I think in the wording "children of my choice" that Ilŭvatar says, he knew at all points, because he knows everything to the point of the second song, or the second music of the Ainur, where all the children of Middle Earth will join in. And it's said at the end of time, after the final battle, that the dwarves will join in as well, and at that time they will become truly the children of Ilŭvatar as well, not of his adoption. But I think he says "children of my choice," not meaning that he didn't choose that that the dwarves be made, it's not that they were made against like his wishes, but he means the children of my choice, meaning these are my chosen, mine elected, my firstborn, who are the elves and then the men, because he has a designated order with which they'll come forth.
Okay, I see. Alrighty. That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, Aulë feels ashamed, and then he raises his hammer above the dwarves, but Ilŭvatar stops him, and then he feels greatly relieved.
I think he stopped because he saw that the dwarves cowered in fear, and he realized that Eru had given them life, and he felt very bad after that.
Mm-hmm. And there's a number of biblical references, but one of the things that you might notice is I was saying Genesis 3, so especially Genesis 3, 9 through 11, where Adam and Eve have partaken of the fruit of the Garden of Eden and have received knowledge and perception that they didn't have before. And because of that, they are afraid and ashamed and hide from God. And that being a part of God's plan, but the wording of God calling for them is very similar to Ilŭvatar, where it says the voice of Ilŭvatar. So Ilŭvatar speaks to Aulë in the moment that he perceives that the dwarves have been made, and Aulë heard his voice and was silent. And the voice of Ilŭvatar said to him, "Why hast thou done this? Why dost thou attempt a thing which thou knowest is beyond thy power and thy authority? For thou hast from me a gift of thine own being only, and no more." And so this is all known to Ilŭvatar, but he's raising these questions to Aulë to get Aulë to explain himself, and then Ilŭvatar will explain, this is actually something I'm pleased with. However, the works of your hands should not come forward before my firstborn children, and so for this reason I'm putting the dwarves to sleep for a time under stone, which is why the elves believe that the dwarves are born from stone, even though they're really born from the mind and will of Ilŭvatar.
Yeah, and the elves believe that's where they'll return to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the dwarves believe they do have a spot in Mandos.
Yes.
And kind of like, I guess, in an area next to the elves, but separate. And but I love how he leaves that open. He's giving you the beliefs of these beings, the elves, and then the dwarvish belief. And he's not saying, at least at this point, in my reading, I didn't see that the author himself, Tolkien, says which one's correct. He just kind of leaves it.
I love this in mythic histories. This is such a good thing. If you're ever writing a story and you want to have an air of authenticity to your story, write your histories as if it's someone who's a compiler who's pulling on different records, because this is the sort of thing Tolkien does, is he'll say, this is the belief that's had among the elves or among the men, and they may call this figure, this godlike being, by a different name, or the men of Rohan, they call Orome by this name, and they revere him for this. However, it's known from this other record that this may actually be more likely the case. So providing different explanations for the same phenomena or the same events, and leaving it kind of up to the reader to get at what the truth is, but saying, here I am presenting the sort of the same tale from different records. It's such an effective storytelling device, and I highly recommend that people use it in their own work if they want to build lore.
Yeah. And so, at least at this point, there are some things that are set out as true, and usually that's expressed from Eru himself. But if Eru didn't say it, then it's a belief of, the dwarves or the elves or men, whoever they say it is. And then it's like, okay, we don't know for sure.
That's something I've always been unclear on. When you hear Eru speak, is it, Eru according to the elves, or Eru is speaking and we're hearing it as the audience?
You just got to read carefully. And just know that you may not know. Sometimes it's Tolkien's intention to not at least let you know everything.
There's not a meta history for who compiled the Silmarillion, really, because there's no figure who's a historian who Tolkien says this is kind of written from an omniscient point of view, because like Jill pointed out, there will be moments where it's like the elves may believe this about the dwarves, However, the elves may actually be wrong. And so it doesn't seem that there was an elven compiler. There's no figure who is drawing on myths and putting this together. This is almost written from an omniscient point of view outside of the world of Arda and of the universe of Ea. And it is, because it's Tolkien. And so it's a really interesting perspective, because it's from someone who has all of the answers and yet isn't telling us all of the answers. Is presenting us different versions of the same events. And Tolkien changed his mind over many years about all sorts of things, and we see in many of his early drafts he'll have even more alternative names for things that eventually he changed the languages, didn't make it in. And so if you go to like Tolkien Gateway or something, there are places online where people have compiled from a lot of these early drafts being like, as far as we understand, like the canon understanding of the two trees, for instance, of Telperion and Laurelin. However, in earlier drafts, Tolkien also wrote these things about the trees, and even though it can't be considered canon now, they can inform your understanding of the trees or any other topic. And so, even from an omniscient point of view, we're being presented with different explanations and sometimes not a really clear view. And there's all sorts of things. The nature of the Ents, which we'll get into in this chapter, or the nature of the dwarves and if they truly have reincarnation, which is something that's debated among fans to this day because it's not fully laid out.
Well, we might as well talk dwarves now, but okay, Jill.
Well, okay, I had I had it just on my tongue. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I talked too long.
Sorry.
No, I did. Okay. I interrupted her as soon as she spoke, but streaming is like that. Go ahead, Jill.
I'm glad that I read this because while I was reading Lord of the Rings, I just had the elves perspective. And so I don't know if the dwarves perspective was in there, but I must have missed over it or skipped it.
Oh, it's like one sentence. It's like the Silmarillion is something you read multiple times. I was listening to it again today. Yet last time's chapter, the first part of the Quenta Silmarillion of what was it? Of the beginning of the and I was like, oh, I remember that now. Oh yeah, I forgot things. I even forgot the name of the first, and I think I forgot it again. Before Valinor, the first home of the Valar on Arda. What is that like? It begins with an A, I think.
Aman.
Oh yes.
Well,
so Jill, that's the way it is. This is normal. It takes a while to get it down.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the idea that in their afterlife the dwarves will serve Aulë, or however we pronounce it, and it is much nicer.
Aulë. Yeah, I have the line if you want me to read it. Where the Silmarillion says, the dwarves are strong to endure, they're stone-hard, stubborn, fast in friendship than in enmity, they suffer toil and hunger and hurt of body more heartily than all of their speaking peoples, which I think speaking peoples is an interesting way to the children of Ilŭvatar would be the elves and the men, but dwarves are speaking peoples as well. They're not animals, they're not beasts, they're not trees. And so here we go. Aforetime it was held among the elves in Middle-earth that dying, the dwarves returned to the earth and the stone of which they were made, yet that is not their own belief. For they say that Aulë the Maker, whom they call Mahal, cares for them, and gathers them to mandos and halls set apart, and that he declared to their fathers of old that Ilŭvatar will hallow them and give to them a place among the children in the end. Then their part shall be to serve Aulë and to aid him in the remaking of Arda after the last battle. And so that is their belief, and that is, as far as we get from the Silmarillion, the closest to the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's always a lot to take in, but one thing that also fascinated me was the description of the dwarves and why they are the way they are. They're stocky, kind of short in stature, but strong. They're meant to weather. I mean, Aulë designed them to weather the storm of Melkor or Morgoth. Basically, this is where the Valar are having to deal with him and his trickery and the damage he causes. So his creation is meant to try and weather that storm, and that's why they are the way they are.
They're hardy, but they also have to deal with there will be strife between Ollie's children and Ilŭvatar's, right? And is that alluding to the elves versus the dwarves and how
Yeah.
they often have a lot of conflict?
Yep.
Mhm.
And that's also a biblical reference as well. I would say compare Genesis 3:15 because let me see. Let me pull up the exact quote from page 44 of the Silmarillion, is something about how often strife shall arise between thine and mine, the children of my adoption and the children of my choice, is what Ilŭvatar says to Aulë, is that there will be enmity between the dwarves and the elves, which compare, a direct quote from Genesis where God says, and I will speaking to Satan as the serpent, he says, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, which in this case is the descendants. All humanity will have enmity towards Satan. And then he says, it shall bruise thy head, meaning her seed. All of humanity shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And that it's very clear that, I haven't looked this up. It's clear to me that these are biblical passages that Tolkien is drawing on in writing the Silmarillion. There's probably been a lot of theological discussion about this. I haven't looked any of that up, though. This is my
Do you
view of.
think do you think it has anything also to do with like the dwarves and the elves has something to do with what is it? Isaac and Ishmael?
Could be. Because yes, there are different. I suppose you could say different fathers of different groups are explained in the earliest books of the Bible, and so, and kind of historical disagreements are also explained in
Because I
biblical
think
stories.
because like if Isaac was the one that was, like at least it's written that way, that was described as foretold by God, but because of impatience, um, Ishmael happened, shall we say, not waiting for God's plan to unfold. I don't know. Maybe I'm leaping there, but I don't know. That's something that just came to my mind.
Well,
I've
there's certainly a lot of biblical passages
Mhm.
that Tolkien's drawing on. Sorry, Jill.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I've always, of course, the hobbits are the main character in Lord of the Rings, so I know they live a little bit longer than men. But I didn't realize that. So, do dwarves just live longer, a little bit longer than the hobbits, or how much longer do they live? Less
Dwarves
than
live
the
several
elves, obviously.
centuries. I think they live several centuries. I think Gimli was something like 294 at the time of the events of the War of the Ring. And so they live several centuries, is my understanding. But of course, they are not immortal, and they know this very well.
Were
Yeah.
hobbits a subset of men?
It's such a great question, isn't it? Probably yes.
Nobody. Yeah. Okay.
Getting into
Yeah,
the origin of the hobbits.
Yeah.
and then the men have different lifespans, from the times of Numenor, which still kind of, and then Eru changing that and making the lifespans of men shorter, but still some longer life, shall we say, longer than normal life was still in the Dunedain after
Mhm.
Numenor. That's why
Aragorn.
Aragorn in the director's cut, Aragorn it actually says to I want to get Eowyn,
Eowyn.
excuse me. Yeah, Eowyn that he's 97. So Aragorn
87.
was 87, excuse me. Yeah.
I
Looking
think
pretty good for
the
his age
I
there.
Long
I
life.
I think at least in my mind, I think the only evidence that we have that the hobbits were like a subset of men is because Eru's always had a soft spot for men and kind of implied that the lowest of men was actually the highest of men in his mind. So you have Eowyn, who defeated the Witch King, and then and she, they her tribe didn't live as long as the Dunedain, who were the high men,
Mary.
and then and then Frodo, sort of kind of defeated Sauron, So it was like the lowest of the low of men in power, I guess.
Meek. So
The
to say.
meekest of so of men, and men were I guess the favorite of Ilúvatar. Defeated the strongest beings in Middle Earth. So I think in my mind that's what really shows that the Hobbit were a subset of men, because they were preferred by Ilúvatar, and they showed, I don't know.
Well,
That's just
Yeah.
in my
You're
mind.
right on. This is one of my favorite messages that Tolkien likes to put into his work. One of my favorite themes of his is that, you know, the small and simple things of the world can confound the great powers. And that's one of the themes. That's part of why Gandalf is so wise and why he's almost disparaged by Saruman and others of his order. They're like, why do you spend so much time with hobbits? Why do you spend so much time with, you know, the smaller and simpler aspects of Middle Earth? Saruman looks down on Radagast as well, because he's like, he talks to birds and he spends his time with the lowly creatures of Middle Earth. And there's great, the whole point is that there's great wisdom that even the powers cannot see. This is something that Gandalf says to Frodo more times than one, that there are things at work in Middle Earth with regards to the ring, with regards to Gollum, with regards to the fates of men and elves and everything in Middle Earth that the powers cannot see. And you think that it would be these great, you know, these great beings, Elrond, people who have great histories that would be, you know, moving everything in Middle Earth. But of course, it's the people who feel themselves inferior. People look down on the kingdom of Rohan as sort of lesser men. And yet, you know, Tolkien is Tolkien's characters, Theoden is my favorite of all of them. And Éowyn is the same as well, is that she's looked down on in many ways. Hobbits are looked down on in many ways too. And yet, you know, you take the four main hobbits of the Lord of the Rings, Frodo, Merry, Pippin, and Sam, and all of them have, you know, incredible arcs and incredible substance to them that, you know, is far more than meets the eye, which is, you know, just one of the principal themes, that there's so much more to simple and small peoples than meets the eye. To answer your question about where the hobbits came from, Tolkien doesn't quite give a definitive answer because he loves not doing that, but it is said that the hobbits used to live, they appeared relatively late. They appeared at some point during the Third Age of Middle Earth, and they seem to have come actually from a place near Rohan. And because of that, the language, the indigenous language of the hobbits, which you know, of course, Frodo Baggins' name is not actually Frodo Baggins. His name is Maor Labingi. And so the actual language that the hobbits speak, which is a little different from the language of Westron, has many connections to the language of the Rohirrim. And the language of the Rohirrim, it canonically is not actually Old English, because this is a difficult thing to explain, but Tolkien translated all of the languages and words in Middle Earth into languages from our world. So the actual, like, Éowyn's name is not actually Éowyn. We know that Éowyn and Éomer, actually their names begin with an L, their real names. He didn't actually write down what their real names are, but he translated their names into Old English. And I love Old English more than any other language out there. And so Éo means horse, of course. And so I think Éowyn means like a lover of horses, or like a woman of horse. Another name that comes up, Eothane, means sort of like Lord of Horse, or like a ruler of horses. And then the Hobbit's language, Tolkien translated into our Middle English. And so because Middle English is a following on from Old English, the idea was that the hobbits, as they traveled further towards the Shire, they traveled further west, and so they crossed the Misty Mountains and then the Brandywine, and eventually settled in the Shire. But Merry is from Buckland, which is the furthest east, and they're the closest to the lands of Rohan. And so the people of Buckland are considered to be a little weird among hobbits, and they have their own customs and their dialect is different. And the people of Buckland are probably they're the closest to the they live by the old forest, and the old forest is super weird. And so the rest of the hobbits are like, oh, those Bucklanders are kind of weird. And Merry, of course, is Merry Brandybuck. He's from Buckland as well. And so in the end of the Lord of the Rings, because Merry spends a lot of time with the people of Rohan and has a real like passion for them. Merry becomes a linguist, and he goes back and he studies the language connections between his language in Buckland, the Middle English that the hobbits speak, and the Old English of the Rohirric language. And he's the one to propose that, based on the hobbits' own legends and then their linguistic connections, that the hobbits seem to have arisen and come from a land quite close to the land that the Proto-Rohirrim came from as well, and that they have a very strong connection with the people of Rohan. Well, as to why hobbits are smaller, it's unclear, but they seem to be some sort of subset of men, and that's, you know, that's a connection that Tolkien took great joy in exploring.
Mm. Well, I do have to say, we have some great back and forth there from two of our great supporters, Artie and Gavin Unit. And for Gavin, he I think he just said not too far back that he is the one.
Not the one.
He's the one that was.
Oh, wow. Well, anyway, Anna, yeah, definitely.
So you gotta stop me when I
No.
No.
I can't, because it's good
I started
stuff.
it, and
I'm learning
glad I
so
did.
much, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. No, I like that Mary went on to become such a researcher. That is amazing.
Yeah, well, it's one of my favorite things, and a lot of people don't realize it. I'm like, no, Tolkien made Merry into a linguist. Merry wrote several treatises, including the Red Book of Westmarch, and you get it in the appendices of the Lord of the Rings. Is like, it was Merry who wrote a lot of this down. He became a noted historian, philologist, and linguist, and then Pippin
like
became
Tolkien
Thane
himself.
of the Shire.
Yeah.
And
it makes so much
Merry
sense,
and
because
Pippin
Mary
were-
was always the one he's always the one who knows the most furthest away from the Shire until he doesn't. And yeah,
No,
he's always been an explorer.
He has the mind of a researcher, of an academic.
Mm.
But yeah, going back to that theme of, like, you know, the simpler beings of Middle Earth are the ones that you don't expect, because that's also a theme of Aragorn as well, is that of course he has a noble lineage, but he's been hidden, he's been raised in secret, he's among the Rangers and the Dunedain, and people like Boromir will look down on him, like at the Council of Elrond. Boromir doesn't realize that Aragorn is such a great being, and of course Boromir is a very noble man, but his father Denethor is obsessed with their lineage, their heritage of, like, the stewards of Gondor, and Denethor is one who obsesses so much on his lineage of a steward, of being, you know, a descendant of the younger son of Isildur. They're descendants of Anarion. They're not a descendants of Isildur the way that Aragorn is. And so Denethor feels the sense of inferiority of being of the house of Anarion, not of the house of Isildur, and he always worries that the true king may come back to supplant him. And Denethor places so much of his worth and his value in his forebears, and the fact that he belongs to a noble house and that he's the steward of Gondor, that he doesn't place much attention in the here and now of what he should actually be doing as a leader to protect his people from the ravages of Mordor, which is why Denethor makes a lot of foolish choices, which of course get played up quite a bit in the film.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so much information that can't be put in a film, and that's why it's like you need to read the books and then the appendices.
There's such small things, though, that they did, because they knew all of this. They had to adapt all of this. The character of Faramir had to be adapted quite a bit. And when they're writing the screenplay, Philip O'Boyens, Fran Walsh, and Peter Jackson, all this line. They kept being like, yeah, we're committing crimes against the book. So it happens a lot. Yet they were aware of all of this, and they knew things had to be adapted. And I agree with most of their adaptational choices. I think they work better for films. But there's small things, like in the character of Denethor, who is such a vain man. They made him very vain and very obsessed with, his lineage and the appearance of his role. One of the things that they did costuming-wise was they put Denethor in, they dressed him in furs and made him extremely expensive looking, but underneath the furs he's got this huge surcoat of mail, and it's one of the biggest mail coats that they made for anyone in the film. And then he's got a sword on, and it was supposed to be the vanity of this man who fancies himself a warrior, a soldier, even though he's not really. His sons are pretty good fighters, but Denethor is not, and yet he's so vain that he considers himself to be a warrior as well, because it's his symbolic role, even if it's not his actual role.
And he very obscenely eats tomatoes.
Yes.
Yes.
Man, it's
Yeah. Ugh.
such a beautiful scene though. As much as people complain about the tomatoes, that scene, the charge on Osgiliath
Oh my
and Pippin
gosh.
singing and Denethor eating,
Oh
you
yeah,
could write
the
a book
song.
on the depths of that scene. And that song, so gorgeous, and the tune composed by Billy Boyd himself, like fantastic stuff.
Tears every time for me.
Every
Mm.
time. I was watching the films in Japanese with some friends recently, and the voice acting is the dubbing is exceptional in the Japanese version. But like especially, I was waiting for that song because I was like, how is the voice actor for Pippin going to do this? And it was so good. He sounds exactly like Billy Boyd. I'm like, it's like Billy Boyd learned Japanese and just sang the song again.
Was it true that that was because they went to karaoke and they're like, wait, you should sing in the movie?
Yeah,
Is
no,
is
that is a true story. Is yeah, they went to karaoke and Billy Boyd just has a gorgeous voice,
Mm.
and he was given free reign to compose the tune as well.
Wow.
Oh
The
wow.
words are from one of Bilbo's walking songs, actually. So the words are straight from Tolkien, but the tune is from Billy Boyd. Actually, it's the same for the song that Aragorn sings at his coronation. He sings the Oath of Erendil, which is
Mm-hmm.
straight from the lore. It's actually straight from the Silmarillion, the Eterela Endureno Turien Oath of Erendil. Sorry, of Elendil, Oath of Elendil. But the tune is actually composed by um Viggo Mortensen.
Vigo.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was like, his name is suddenly like not allowed to come to my mind.
Too many names.
The tune was composed by Viggo Mortensen himself, and again, he's also a really good singer. And they were like, why don't you sing? Why don't you write this tune for us? And then you wouldn't see that amount of autonomy and creativity given to actors in most film
No.
projects these days. Nor would the actors have the skill to be able to just step up and produce something so good. Like
Right.
really,
Well, they
such a
were
dream cast for
passionate
Lord of the
about
Rings.
it. You know, when
Yeah,
you appreciate.
everyone brought their A game to everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
And
love the films. I'll talk about them forever.
The stars
no, it's
aligned
awesome. No,
when they were being made. Yes. Oh my gosh.
well, here's the mead maker. Uh, we have Yavana, who is, of course, I mean, can we go on to Yavana, or is there anything still Aulë oriented that you wanted to cover, or dwarf oriented? I think we could probably
Okay,
go on to.
I think we can. I do have a question about the last battle. What does that mean? Is that the end of the world, or what is going
Yeah,
on with the last battle?
yeah,
It's
it's like
Oh, go ahead.
Ragnarok. Yeah, go ahead, Anna. You could say it better than I.
No, go for it, Lawrence.
Well, that's it. It's like Ragnarok. It's no, it's and I'm still trying to. Each time I reread, I get more insight into it. But basically, yeah, it's when the final battle where good triumphs.
Hmm.
At the end of the, shall we say, the end of the song, or at least this song.
Hmm. Yes, it's
I
the
really,
metal
Anna.
fans know that it's called Dago Dagorath because there's a metal band called Dago Dagorath because it's such a but yes, it is Ragnarok. It's the
Yeah,
final
and I
battle.
forgot. Yeah, I forgot the Daigo Dagarath. It's hard to say.
I think it means like battle of battles.
Yeah.
But yes, it's appointed from the music, and it's known that Melkor will lose. He's been appointed to lose from the beginning, essentially, and Melkor strives against this. He believes that he can change the music of the Ainur and that he can come out victorious. But no, all of this has been foretold, has been appointed by Eru himself. But it's known that there will be some losses taken in Dago Dagorath. There's a few specific things are like it said that Tulkas will fight Melkor directly. Tulkas is one of the Ainur,
Mm-hmm.
who's one of the Valar, who's kind of a god of battle, and yet
Yep.
Tulkas actually will not be the one to defeat him. So Tulkas will lose, I suppose. But Melkor will at last be defeated and all of his works thrown down, and then the world, which will have been largely destroyed in the Dago Dagorath, the world will be rebuilt in the second music of the Ainur. And in this second music, this is the one where all of the children of Middle Earth, the elves and the men and the dwarves as well, will raise up their voices and sing together. And so in singing, I think it means both literal singing and through their works, they will rebuild Middle Earth. And so they will remake Arda the world of Arda into an even more kind of glorious and beautiful place than it was in the first music, because in this case, all of the children of Eru and the Ainur, the Valar, everyone will be working together. And then in this case, the mountains that have blocked Valinor, because there's some really, really high mountains, which is actually where the Valar lives. The mountains will be cast down, and so the light from Valinor will spread out to all of Middle Earth, and there will be no more division between the Valar and the gifts that they give to the rest of Middle Earth, and all will be kind of made whole and will be made more beautiful than it was in the first music. Is the way that the prophecy goes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so that's where the Neverending Story got it from.
Probably. You'll see bits of this in so much fantasy, and it's so easy to see why, because this is it's such archetypal storytelling, but it's such inspiring stuff.
Indeed.
I also made note of the callback to Khazad Doom. That's fun to see Moria in there. That's all I had.
Yeah. Well, now after the talk between Ilŭvatar and Aulë, and we hear more about the dwarves, why they are the way they are, and everything. It's really fascinating. It kind of pulls it all together, gives it a reason, and it's just like legends are, you know. And then we have Yavana. Now she, of course, is, I guess you would say, spouse of Aulë.
It's a strange pairing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I
like
think
Vulcan
it was
and Venus.
a great pairing, because it's almost like you could see between the husband and the wife, if you will, the differences is almost like the differences between the dwarves and the elves. And although the elves are definitely Ilúvatar's creation, of course, the elves call Yavana Kementari, and they really have, I guess, so you say, more of a relationship, a stronger relationship, or a view of her, because they're kind of more aligned, you know?
I would like to say that the marriage of these two alludes to the fact that they elves and dwarves can be friends, just like Gimli and Legolas.
Yeah.
And some people would see a comparison with Greek mythology as well, where I think the spouse of what's his name, the smith god, Hephaestus. The spouse of Hephaestus is in this case Aphrodite, who is the god of like love and goddess of love and beauty, and it's supposed to be seen as like a very strange mismatch, because Hephaestus is one of the
kind of ugly
the gods of the
guy.
he's kind of ugly. He's pockmarked because he's always smithing, and there's like sparks that will pock his face from the work that he does, and then I think he also has like
but he makes beautiful things.
Yeah,
like
he has
that
a congenital
owl.
defect. Yeah, he has like a withered foot or something. But yeah, the whole point is that it's not about Hephaestus's physical beauty, but about the beauty of what he makes. But there's often, some friction between Hephaestus and Aphrodite and their perspectives to beauty and other things. And then it's also seen as like, isn't it an odd pairing, but like weirdly complementary, that the sort of the ugly smith god who creates goes together with the goddess of like all things most beautiful and aesthetically perfect, which of course was really important to the Greeks because they were striving to get artistic perfection and all sorts of things.
Right.
I see a similar dynamic here with these two.
Yep.
Oh, for sure, and especially in their conversations about the dwarves, and she created these beautiful trees, but Aulë says, "Well, they're gonna need wood to make." Stuff.
Well, he says that at the end. Yeah, still
I like
after
their back and forth.
Yeah. Well, no, what her thoughts are, and we might as well get into them. And she eventually brings this before Manwë, the leader of the Valar. She's concerned about her trees, and her area of this creation of Ilúvatar is like the trees and the forests and the flora and fauna. And it's like, well, wait a minute, these children, I could see my beauty being taken advantage of, especially with these dwarves that my husband made. These guys are going to be going after these trees and stuff. So she's concerned, and she brings that to Manwë, who's trying to remember the song, the initial song. And it's hard reading here. I mean, he does mention the eagles that and so forth. But eventually we're going to also talk about this, the Ents. And really it's through this conversation that Manwë gets deep into thought and tries to remember the song. And he's not sure, but he is troubled enough that he's like, I think he asks Ilŭvatar, and from that divine inspiration, if you will, he comes up with the idea of the Ents. Is that the right way of saying it, Anna? It's like hard to be sure there.
I love this passage because I love the way that Manwë and Yavana approach the music of the Ainur, interpreting the song almost as if it's constitutional law. Because
Yeah.
of course Manwë is like he's kind of a king and a judge, and so he is one of the ones who will interpret the song, and together with Mandos. No, I don't want to restart my computer. You know how they just pop up, and it's like, no.
Well, I solved that a couple
Yeah,
years
not a
ago
good
because
time.
now I'm running Linux. But the thing that happened to me lately is with doing these accents and things over the characters, with a recent update, my compose key works differently in different software, and sometimes I can't figure it out. So I can't get Aulë right with the, I can't do the special characters and all things. Fortunately, GIMP still lets me do it for the images, but
And I'm switching between 3 keyboards because I have my English one, I have Japanese one, I have a
Oh.
Portuguese one. So
Oh
it's
my
like whenever I
gosh.
have to do special characters, I just use the
Portuguese. Now you
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, I
Oh
speak
my
Portuguese.
God.
I lived in Brazil.
Well, that you speak everything, man.
But anyway, back to Manwë.
Yeah.
I love the way that.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jill.
Is Yavana upset that Aulë made children without her? Just because that they won't have the love of the land, and is that
I think yes, and yet a good point is raised by both Aulë and Manwë is that, well, the other children of Ilŭvatar will also be making use of your creations because she's worried about the Kelvar and the Olvar, right? So sort of animals and beasts. So they're not speaking peoples, but the living things of Middle Earth that aren't speaking. So animals and beasts are the Kelvar, the animate ones, and plants and trees are the Olvar, the ones that can't run away or defend themselves. I think the animate, inanimate, living thing division is very interesting. And she particularly likes trees, which of course is straight from Tolkien because Tolkien loves trees and he pays a lot of attention to them. And yet in this passage, he doesn't present either Yavana or Aulë's perspective as the objectively correct one. But of course, Yavana saying, well, I don't want people to be cutting down my trees. They're slow to grow. They take so long. They can't defend themselves. And only trees that produce fruit are even the ones that people care about. Other trees will just be chopped down without a second thought, used for fuel, used for building materials. And I don't want my creations to be, or my creations that I've made out of the music of Eru Ilŭvatar to be thus treated. And yet it's pointed out, well, the children of Ilŭvatar as well as the children of Aulë they'll have need for fuel, they'll have need for building materials, and it's not the dwarves who are going to be uniquely using the trees. It will in fact be elves and men as well. So she goes to Manwë, and she and Manwë, I think that's such an interesting part that they interpret the music, because of course nothing can be created of Yavana and Manwë that wasn't originally in the song. All of this comes from the mind and thought of Eru Ilŭvatar, because he is the one sole creator. And yet they sit down and they think about the song. And of course, this is all in the mind of Eru as well. He knows that they will think about it at this time. And they will say, actually, interpreted constitutionally, the song does allow for Ents to be made. It actually is right here in the music. But they sit down and they reflect on it for a long time. And there's a really beautiful passage where it says Manwë perceives the music in a way that he hasn't before. And many things that weren't clear to him at the beginning become clear to him now. And he comes back to Yavana and he says, we can create beings that will be guardians of the Olvar, of the trees and the growing things that can't defend themselves.
Yeah, it's almost like he doesn't want to make the same mistake as Aulë, just go into creating. It's like, no, hold on. Let's check with, the original design from the architect Ilŭvatar first.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'll read the passage, if I may, just because it's so
go ahead.
gorgeous. where it says, "And it seemed to Manwë that the song rose once more about him, and he heeded now many things therein, that though he had heard them, he had not heeded before. And at last the vision was renewed, but it was not now remote, for he was himself within it, and yet he saw that all was upheld by the hands of Ilŭvatar, and the hand entered in, and from it came forth many wonders that had until then been hidden from him in the hearts of the Ainur." And so, of course, it's that nothing is new. This was always there, and yet he now has the inspiration to be able to understand more fully the mind of Eru Ilúvatar. And it's said at the beginning that Manwë, as sort of the king of the Valar, he is the one who understands most closely the mind of Eru Ilúvatar and understands most closely the song. And he and Mandos together are the ones who sit in judgment and interpretation of how the song should be. And yet their understanding is not perfect. You know, it's only God, only Eru Ilúvatar, to which all things are known perfectly. And he wants his children, or in this case, he wants the Valar, you know, to figure things out a little bit on their own. It's all there,
Yep.
and yet he wants them to take their time in coming to it.
Yep.
Definitely did. I think the answer pretty much, I think they're my favorite. I love them very much. There's but there's also these trees that, besides the Ents, that can just like move in groups like herds.
Yes,
How
the
are
horns.
they related with the Ents?
Where do horns come from? I don't remember off the top of my head, because the horns can be quite dangerous to people. They're because the Ents aren't trees exactly, and the horns are trees, but it's kind of like Old Man Willow in the old forest that have thoughts and that can move. And then this is actually something they were going to put in the Two Towers. They really thought about it, and you can see bits of it in the extended still, is that they're going to have the Ents as a faction and the horns as a different faction. And the horns, of course, move south. They move from the forest of Mirkwood, and they travel to right outside Helm's Deep, and they're the ones who, in the extended cut, eventually finish off the rest of the Uruk-hai.
Right.
And yet they, in the final extended cut of the film, they removed all references to the horns because they thought it's too many factions. We already have so many moving parts. We're just going to kind of make it clear that, like, the trees of Mirkwood can kind of move, and yet there are trees that can't move, and then there are horns that can, and that need to be tamed and taken care of by the Ents, which, as far as we understand, aren't really trees. The exact nature of the Ents is unclear, though. Yes, so there are two theories about the Ents and what they really are, and it's not clear which one's which. They're either souls that have been sent to inhabit trees, or they are beings separate from trees that slowly took the likeness of trees due to their inborn love of trees. And I personally suspect it's the latter, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, another one of those things. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. And we'll unfortunately never find the Entwives. Shouldn't one of the heavenly beings know where they are?
Yeah, so the Entwives, their fate is unclear, but they're most likely dead. Unfortunately, the closest sources, the most accurate sources, they seem to have been destroyed and burned by Melkor.
Well, I think. I was hoping it was just that they were asleep. They just got tired of waiting for the Ents to finish a sentence.
But just hoping they were somewhere farming some fields, making their vegetables or whatever they like to do. They're a little bit different from the men.
Yes, so Ents men, again, I suspect that they are spirits that have taken on the likeness of trees rather than being spirits that have been sent to inhabit trees. But the men are more devoted to Orome, the hunter, who is also, he's a god of forests, or like, he's not a god really, he's a Valar, but he's treated as a god by many of the men, by many men. And Orome is the hunter and also the god of forest, and he loves forest, and he also loves beasts that live in forests. And so Orome, with his love of trees, is very close to Yavana as well. And so the males serve him, which is why they're kind of wild. They love the deep forests and wild and untamed things. And female Ents are devoted to Yavana, who, of course, Yavana's literal name is Yave-Anna, which means like giver of fruits. Anna means gift, which is where Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, which was one of Sauron's aliases, that's where his name comes from. But Yavana is the giver of fruits, and so the female Ents were more devoted to Yavana, and they loved cultivated lands. They loved fruit trees and orchards. And because of that, they left the Ent men to their deep forests, and the Ent wives spent most of their time in cultivated orchards and lands. And because they stayed with their cultivated orchards and they wouldn't leave them even when they were threatened, that's why it seems the Ent wives were probably burned and destroyed by Melkor, which really sucks.
But we can still hope.
We can hope that some have escaped.
Yeah, but we don't trust, I guess,
Yeah.
people picking up Tolkien's work and adding to it, though. It's kind of...
Yeah, I
Let's
have
leave
to
it a
have hope, or
mystery.
my heart would be broken. I can't do it.
Aw.
Okay, so I just checked the Huorns because I was really curious, like, where did they come from? Because they're a weird thing. They're not quite Ulvar. They're not quite inanimate living beings, but they're more like Kelvar because they're more like beasts. And from what I'm checking right here on Tolkien Gateway, is that they're mysterious in Tolkien's mind because they're kind of a half awoken race. They're more sapient than trees, but they're not fully sentient. They're not speaking peoples like Ents, dwarves, elves, and men are. And so they live in Fangorn Forest and in the Old Forest. I said Mirkwood before when I said the Huorns left. I didn't mean Mirkwood. I meant Fangorn. They might have lived in Mirkwood as well, but we don't see in The Hobbit. I don't think The Hobbit, when they're traveling through Mirkwood, that there's any mention of trees being alive and creepy. Mirkwood's just a creepy place and has spiders in it.
Yeah.
But the nature of Huorns is not quite clear because they seem to be more like a people of Middle-earth, but they're not quite. And the Ents care for them, and the Ents kind of keep them under control. And so there's one of the things that Mary actually theorizes about, because it's not clear if the Huorns, one possibility is that they are Ents that became more tree-ish, or they're trees that became more Entish because of, the magic of the elves, actually. That's one of the things that's mentioned. The Ents, of course, are a creation of Ilŭvatar, but Legolas has a line in the second film where he talks about how the Ents began it. Legolas isn't quite right. It's not the Ents that began it, but the Ents were the ones when the Ents woke up, the elves were the ones to teach them to speak, because Ilúvatar rarely intercedes directly in his children, and so since the elves were the firstborn, when the Ents awoke, it was the elves that taught them and that gave them the love of trees. Mary theorizes that Huorns are Ents that have become more tree-like, and so that they are in fact speaking peoples, but over time their thoughts have become slower and they've kind of fossilized a little bit, but it's unclear what they are.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah,
that
and
actually is in the books, so I forgot about that.
and the
Thank
thing
you.
with
Yes.
how is the spelling? Because I know it shouldn't be confused with the name Hurin, like the children of Hurin.
Huorn is Huorn.
Okay, just like the tribe, the Huron, the Native American tribe. Well, the spelling.
Oh yeah, like Lake Huron. Yeah, a little.
Yeah, Lake
almost.
Huron.
Yes, 2 letters switched.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, yeah. I do audiobooks because of my vision, so I don't know the spelling of a lot of things.
No worries.
So anyway, that is the last of the slides, but they also mentioned the eagles in there with Manwë's talk with Yavana. And I just wasn't quite sure. I guess he just mentioned them in passing because they are also considered to be shepherds in a way, but different association. But that I thought that would be a great thing to ask you about, though, Anna, because I know that the eagles have a way of coming to save the day at the end of stories, and I never really was completely clear as to what their domain is, but they seem to be like, as eagles kind of are, up in the air and kind of above a lot of things.
We always knew they were more than just normal animals because they could speak very, very freely and definitely seem to have a civilization.
Yes, so you can divide kind of eagles and hawks. So all raptors and big seeing birds are messengers of Manwë, and he actually is able to see much of Middle Earth kind of through their eyes. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it said that Manwë is the one who sees, and Varda, the Queen of the Stars, his spouse, is the one who hears. And that between Manwë's vision and Varda's hearing, that they understand most of what goes on in Middle Earth. And Manwë is able to see through the eyes of eagles and birds, but we can tell that there's like normal eagles, and then there's the giant speaking eagles, which can be considered a speaking people of Middle Earth. And
Right.
so, of course, we meet Gwaihir the Wind Lord, who's, I love the name. Wind Lord is such a cool title, but Gwaihir the Wind Lord is the one who actually comes and saves Gandalf from the clutches of Saruman at one point, and Gwaihir gives he updates Gandalf on what's been going on and gives him some news. And then, of course, great eagles also come and save Bilbo's party, you know, in a very famous episode of the
Yeah.
Hobbit. And
The Frodo
so
and
in
Sam.
this, yes, in this case, when Yavanna is talking about the eagles, I think she's making reference to Manwë's greatness, and she's saying, you've given the trees of my love, you've given these forests a chance, and because of that, I want these great forests that I've made that are now to be protected by your interpretation of the music which has given us Ents. These trees are going to become a great abode for your eagles, and so in a way my glory and your glory will grow together, and it's because your eagles that allow you to see far will be be rested, they will be able to rest and be sheltered by my trees. And so in a way she's rejoicing and, you know, speaking poetically because she's so pleased of like this beautiful thing that has come about between her and Manwë working together and interpreting the
Mm.
song. I think it's just an expression of her joy as
Okay.
she's speaking about, like, it's kind of the glory of the Ents is like, you know, the wisdom, swiftness, and vision of eagles has come together with the great size, the strength, and the long life of trees, and together this beautiful creation has been made.
Okay. Yeah.
I think is what she's going about. It's a beautiful passage where she says,
Wow.
um, or actually, uh, this is Manwë speaking, where he says, "But dost thou not remember? Dost thou not now remember Kementari, which means Queen of the Earth, is
Mm-hmm.
one of her titles. That thy thoughts sang not always alone. Did not thy thought and mine meet also, so that we took wing together like great birds that soar above the clouds? That also shall come to be by the heat of Ilŭvatar, and before the children awake, there shall go forth with wings like the wind the eagles of the lords of the west." So actually, this is Manwë speaking, saying that historically, you, Yavana, and I, Manwë, our thoughts have done very well together, and we have been able to dream up very beautiful things. And this is once again a beautiful thing, a beautiful creation, an interpretation of the will of Eru Ilŭvatar that has come from our thoughts together. And
Mm-hmm.
then because Yavana is so glad, she kind of sings and prays, which you'll see again, it's very biblical, is you'll see men and women singing like praise to my God. And so she says, "High shall climb the trees of Kementari, that the eagles of the king may house therein." And that, I think, is an expression of her joy and her gratitude for this new life, this new speaking people of the Ents that has just been created.
Mm.
I've always just accepted that the eagle's autonomy and free will were just a thing that exists, but it never occurred to me just how impressive they are as beings of a similar nature, similar spiritual nature as humanoids that have been created.
Again, the nature of the great speaking eagles is unclear, and it's thought that they may be Maiar spirits. Again, sort of lesser spirits to the Ainur, but much like, you know, the Balrogs, the wizards, other beings, that they may be Maiar that have in fact taken on these shapes of eagles and great birds to serve Manwë. But it's unclear.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like his distinctions there, like using speaking beings as like a distinction. It does kind of like insinuate sapient thought, and in many ways it's like, I guess, the thinking of any kind of creature that has language is necessarily going to be different than the thinking of any creature that does not have language, because the thoughts and words become intertwined so much that There's some experiences, some special experiences we can have that we can't put into words. Of course, that exists, but so much of our thoughts are kind of like limited to words in our normal everyday lives that it is a different order of thinking. And I kind of really appreciate that classification. Not to say one is better or worse or anything, but it's just, it's heavily thought out material.
Also, see you, Margaret. Sometime I need to ask you more specifically what about your Italian friend and his phobia. Sorry, in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
No, yeah, whenever I hear
Yes.
that, I kind of have a clue. Okay.
Cool.
Well, yes. Thanks
Yeah,
for
goodbye.
stopping by, Margaret. Margaret.
Margaret.
Okay, there we go.
Well,
So-
she had something funny earlier where she's saying her Italian friend is afraid that Americans will analyze him too hard, and if he gets overly analyzed, he'll pass out. And
That sounds like some
I
world
dated
building
at one
right
point
there.
an Italian guy, and I'm like, I wonder what he would make of this, because maybe he fits that description too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a whole lot of people say, oh, why don't they just, fly the eagles to Mordor, which of course would be silly because they're so big. Sauron would see them right away, but also because maybe they don't want to. They have their own free will.
It's not in the song.
It's not.
It isn't
They
in the
come
song.
at the coda of everything.
And yes, I think the whole point is that had the eagles flown into Mordor with, the ring, first, there is a great risk because the eagles are speaking sapient beings. And so if they're bearing the ring, even if there is a ring bearer who's actually physically holding the ring, there's always the risk that they could become corrupted by it.
Yeah.
Second, I think the whole point is that even were they to fly to Mordor, people have talked about anti-eagle Nazgul all the time, but no, the whole point is they would not have made it. And this quest was supposed to be a quest of secrecy, and it was only by secrecy and only by relying on something, by beings so small and insignificant that Sauron would not perceive them. In the case of Frodo, and Sam, that this could even be successful, and that's something, Boromir and other characters had a hard time reconciling, because they'd be like, why have we given a witless halfling the ring? Why should it not be, the strongest and most valiant of men, or, the most powerful beings who should who should carry the ring? But the whole point is that I don't think any of those methods would be successful. Perhaps the eagles could have physically flown them to Mordor, but I do not believe that they would have made it to the Cracks of Doom, to the very Mount Urudurin, to be able to cast it in, because it would have been too conspicuous. It just would not have worked. There's actually, though, because Tolkien was asked this many times in his lifetime, and there's the most wonderful recording where he spends quite a long time reading out someone's question, where he's like, why do people have asked me, why not take the eagles? And then he ends with, because shut up. And it's so funny.
What?
Well, also, I think
I'll send you, I'll find the clip. I'll send it to you guys. It's a recording of his voice. It's wonderful.
But it's also one thing I gather from, Babylon 5 that does pay a lot of homage to Tolkien. And one of the things that reoccurs there, kind of like the words of wisdom that just come up in different episodes now and then, is it's not about the answers, but really the journey and what comes from the experience of the journey. And I think a lot of times when we're questioning things in our own reality, which I do, I struggle, and when I do, I have to come back to, there is some purpose to this experience. There is a purpose to the struggle, and you just don't see it until you get through it and get into a better light where you can look back and see it. And I think in a way, it's like we needed a hero's journey of Frodo, not just for a great story, but in those circumstances, it's almost like, even though the eagles are associated with Manwë, everything is associated with the Ilŭvatar, the song, and the plan. And it's almost like the plan is not to just kind of make one of the other creations just kind of come save the day or make it easy. It needed to be a struggle for Frodo's own growth, and thus the growth of all the creation of Ilŭvatar. and I I don't know. That's something I gathered, was that it could also just be easily thought of as that you need to go through the journey, you need to go through the struggle, and you can't just have a quick end. We wouldn't have a story, and then also at the same time, that's not the way reality seems to work in a spiritual sense. It seems like we're meant to go through some hard times.
Tolkien trying to reconcile why God would make this realm so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Why we have to? He's
Well, he went through World War
struggled
One.
so much. Yeah.
You know,
So he was trying to, in many ways, I feel in the Silmarillion, trying to justify God and why would God allow evil to exist?
mm-hmm.
And he was fighting with that idea. I feel.
I think we all do. And even though he's a devout Catholic, he still thought about these things,
Of course.
and his work was a way of him maybe trying to answer it and deal with it.
I find it endlessly inspiring. And of course, I think that Tolkien sees himself much in the story of Aulë that we've discussed today, because Tolkien talks quite a bit about creation and how true creation. Again, highly recommend people read the short story by Tolkien, Leaf by Niggle, which gets into exactly this notion that true creation and true inspiration only come from God or from a divine source, and that even those who create and who write and who try to make perfection, they can never make perfection. No one can ever create in the way that God can, but only
Mm-hmm.
if people are trying to create for good, they do it in a way where their creations are meant to be a glorification of the divine, of reflecting these beautiful things that have been created by God. And then if people are evil and they're making their creations from a perspective of evil, it all comes to mockery and worthlessness.
Yeah.
But the whole point, and so Tolkien sees his own work, of course, as nothing compared to the beauty of the creations of God. And through his Catholic faith, he sees everything that's on the earth, the perfection of nature that he sees being further corrupted by men, because of course Tolkien saw, he saw the landscapes and forests of the UK being, rapidly destroyed by industrialization. He saw the devastation that war caused on landscapes as well. And he saw this as, man's free will and agency, corrupting and disrupting that which God has made. And then he also would see, the inherent nobility of men being corrupted by evil men for their own designs. And so he saw this as he wanted to create things that would draw people's eye back to the glory of God and to the beauty of his creation. But Tolkien didn't feel that his own creations could ever do anything but reflect the glory of God. And we see that very same thing in Aulë's creation of the dwarves, is that Aulë is very humble about it. And his first thought is, I'm so sorry, I have been presumptuous. I will destroy these things I've made if that's what will please you, like Ilŭvatar. But of course, that's not the role. Aulë made the dwarves just because he wanted to have speaking peoples. There were none yet upon the earth, and he wanted peoples to behold things that were beautiful, to behold the works of Ilŭvatar, and to give glory to him. And that's how Tolkien saw his own role as, as an artist, as an author of, a creator of beauty and art, as he saw himself creating only a reflection of, in his Catholic faith, the perfection that God has made. Again, highly recommend Leaf by Niggle, because it really gets into Tolkien's perspective on all of this.
Right. Um, I'm kind of like, I guess I could do a Kindle of that and have text to speech. I really prefer human narrators though, but yeah, unfortunately I don't see well enough to be able to read it off pages. So
No worries. Like, again, I tell people to read things. You don't actually have to read any of it.
No. I'd
There's
like
more in
to.
the world than we can ever read.
I'd like to. I think I'll do that after this journey through the Silmarillion. But yeah, I want to give Liza and Jill any opportunity here to ask questions or bring up concepts. We're getting towards the end, but we still do have a little time left before Anna needs to leave. So speak
Wrote
now
down
or
the
forever
book.
hold your peace.
Yeah, I wrote down the title of the book too. So thanks to Anna, I now need to actually, yeah. No, wait. Thanks to Anna, I need to buy one book, and thanks to Liza, I've got to buy the the Klingon, conversational Klingon. Yes.
It's a short story. You can find
Exciting.
it online as well. I
Mhm.
don't think it'd take like an hour or two to read at most. It's not very long.
Wonderful. Yes, trying to
Oh,
get
okay.
into the mind of the creation of Lord of the Rings is definitely going to help me understand Lord of the Rings as a whole, and I definitely appreciate all your immense encyclopedic knowledge of all of this
Oh, yes,
amazing
my
lore.
gosh.
Artistic
Thank you.
knowledge.
Thank you so much.
So everyone has their special interests that they hyper focus on, and mine run in this direction.
Well, you have a lot of directions. Is your interest in learning Portuguese related to the fact that there's a very large Japanese population in Brazil?
Oh no, that's just coincidental. I lived
Oh,
in
okay.
Brazil a long time ago, years and years ago.
Oh,
But
wow.
there's actually there's a lot of Brazilians here in Japan as well. And if you,
Wow.
I used to live in a city called Hamamatsu, a long time ago, and Hamamatsu is one of the only places in Japan where street signs are like in three languages. They'll be in Japanese and in English and then in Portuguese as well.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot of Brazilians in Hamamatsu, and it was great because like you'd hear someone speaking Portuguese, and if you speak to, Brazilian in Japan, within 5 minutes they're like, "We are best friends. My child is having a birthday party next week. Like you better come. We're having a barbecue." Like people will become your friends instantly if
Awesome.
strangers in a strange land speaking Portuguese together.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool beans.
Well, folks, anything else? I had a feeling we might get done a little early today, but I think an extra few minutes in getting ready for work is probably not amiss. Won't go amiss
One
there
more
for Anna.
thing. What do you think about the dwarves and their reincarnation? Because that's one of the beliefs of the dwarves, is that the seven fathers become reincarnated in their kings, especially the greatest of the seven fathers, Durin, which is why all of their kings
Mm.
are named Durin. Um, and it's something that came up in Rings of Power, although it seems to have been misunderstood by the writers of Rings of Power.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, I do love the concept of reincarnation. I guess I would describe myself as a Christian, but I also am very open to reincarnation in some of the 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 texts written by the Gnostics and everything. I'm just a journeyman. I'm trying to learn things,
Certainly the early
but I
Christians
definitely
believed in
feel an
reincarnation.
affinity
Yeah.
for Christ and a personal relationship in a way, although it's very mysterious. But that does fascinate me.
So Tolkien has a couple of examples of, I suppose, reincarnation that come up. With the dwarves, it says here, one of the beliefs of the dwarves, they say also that the seven fathers of the dwarves return again to live in their own kin and bear once more their ancient names, of whom Durin
Mm,
was the most renowned in after ages, father of that kindred most friendly to the elves, whose mansions were at Khazad-dûm. And so that's Moria, and it's the dwarves of Moria who were the most friendly with the elves of the kingdom of Lindon, especially,
mm-hmm.
or no, it was the kingdom of Holland, which is one of the kingdoms that was overthrown. And Holland, actually, you can see it in the films. Holland, there used to be a road between the kingdom of Holland and the kingdom of Khazad-dûm, and it was lined by holly trees. And so you can actually see in the films when
Wow.
when they go up to the doors of Moria, there's two or three kind of dead holly trees up against the doors, which are the remnants of that ancient road. And you can actually see a couple of the dead holly trees are in the water, where the water in the water comes out, which is why there's trees there. And so that's, again, when they were
And
making these films, they read the books and they read the lore and they
Yeah.
put as much as they possibly could in.
Amazing.
But anyway,
Well,
much
yeah,
like
and
if
that's why also to open the door, there was
so,
also a
it's
lot of
like if you
elfish
have a.
magic
speak, friend,
there.
and enter. But
Oh, sorry, we were
with the
speaking over
sorry with
each other. Jill, did you
with
get
the
your idea
go ahead.
out? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to mention the pretty door that did also
Mm.
uh, show the friendship between the dwarves and the elves
Mhm.
that you open to get into Moria.
But with reincarnation, the thought is that since it's the dwarves' own belief that they have a hall kind of separate to the halls of Mandos, so that the elves, when they die, or at least they don't truly die, they're still bound to Arda. They're bound to Ea. They're bound to the plane of the earth, and they don't truly go beyond. Whereas when men die, their spirits leave the plane of existence that they're on, and they go to some place outside of Ea, outside of the universe, that even the elves and even the Ainur don't know where the spirits of men go. And it's thought that they go to the timeless halls beyond creation to be with Ilŭvatar personally, which is why the gift of men is considered the death of men is considered a gift given to them, even though at times, like the men of Numenor had their view corrupted by Sauron. Sauron tried to tell them that the death was actually a curse, not a gift, and that they needed to try and seek the immortality of the elves. But elves, when they die, when their physical bodies are killed, they go to the halls of Mandos, and there have been cases where it seems that elves have come back. Glorfindel, whether there were two Glorfindels or one Glorfindel who was killed and then was sort of reincarnated back on the earth. The whole point is that it's reincarnation and that another body has been made. And the dwarves believe also that their kings will come, the spirits of their kings come back to inhabit the bodies of new kings, which is why in the actual chronology of the elves kings, there's only ever one Durin at a time, because there will be a King Durin and his son will also be a Durin, but the whole point is that he can't be king and be King Durin while the previous Durin is still alive, because they're all thought to be the original Durin.
Right.
And a lot of people have talked about this, that it's not exactly reincarnation, because it's thought that the fathers of the dwarves kind of sleep and their bodies are preserved and their spirits will eventually return. But it's unclear if this is actually what's happening, but it's what the dwarves believe.
Well, it's one of those things that it's like, it's left to be mysterious, and I think it's probably good that it is. I mean, when you have a Mandos, and this, the Dwarven believe that they have like a section of Mandos or another Mandos for themselves.
The Aulë presides over, yeah.
Yeah, that it's like, all right, cool. I mean, Tolkien doesn't say if it's right or wrong, but one would think, and it's probably not what the elves think. It's probably, it's probably a little closer to what the dwarves think, but it does bring up that thing. It's like, do you remember anything before you were born? I mean, some people say they do. But with dwarves, it's like, if their leaders remember things from before, or if it's like the Dalai Lama where, playing with some toys, playing with the same toys in this lifetime as a previous lifetime, that must be a reincarnation. It's fascinating. If anything, I mean, I like the idea, and I'm glad that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
No,
Jill.
no. Lawrence, before this stream, I was totally buying into the propaganda by the elves, and now I've got a different view. This is amazing.
This is one thing I love about the Silmarillion also, is that in the Lord of the Rings novels and in other of Tolkien's works, the elves are often, I mean, it's not that they're seen as infallible. We see the elves really messing up, and Fëanor doing all sorts of naughty things as well. But the elves, from the perspective of like men and hobbits, are often seen as like, they're unfathomably wise and and possibly ancient, and they have such a nobility and a knowledge to them, like they really are the powers of Middle Earth. Whereas from this perspective, we see the elves as like young children that are growing and learning, and that many times the understanding of the elves is incomplete compared to that of the Ainur, of course, and then even the understanding of the Ainur is incomplete. Is incomplete compared to the mind of Ilŭvatar. And here we're getting the perspective of, no, the elves do not know everything about Middle Earth. They're the firstborn children, and they live forever. Or they are immortal in a way, and yet their understanding is rather incomplete, and they don't understand even the other peoples of Middle Earth. The elves don't have a complete understanding of the fate and destiny of men. They have very little understanding of hobbits, because they don't even pay much attention to them. And then they don't fully understand the dwarves, even though they've had more dealings with dwarves than with many other of the speaking peoples of Middle Earth. They also don't fully understand the Ents and where they came from, even though the elves were teachers and guides of the Ents. So it's great to get this perspective of elves as also, students of Middle Earth as well.
Yeah, and that reminds me of how the Ents, even though they're also very ancient, they don't know what hobbits are, which is such a cute thing in the books. But earlier you said
hobbits.
Yeah, earlier you said something a little contradictory. You said there could only be one Durin at a time. So when
Yes,
there's a
that's why it's
son called
unclear.
Durin, do they give him a different name until he grows up and becomes king?
I don't know. I think I'm not sure if like because like it is really unclear because I'm like, it's not like the father dies before the son is born. Um, but I think the notion is like when by the time a Durin becomes king, the previous Durin somehow comes to inhabit like the Avatar spirit and gives him like all the knowledge of past kings or something like that. And I don't really understand it myself. And
Well,
this is actually one of the things that has a lot of fan debate on it is whether or not there's actually reincarnation among the dwarves. So you can go to forums and watch people argue about it.
We could be more cynical and just say that, the king to wield the most control over the people claims that he is speaking, that Durin is speaking through him.
Mhm. And that is presented by Tolkien as one of the possible explanations is that the dwarves believe that the spirit of the original father Durin comes back, but is that really the case? We don't know. That's
well,
just the
that's
belief
the
held
thing.
among the dwarves.
Could it be an entity? Well, could it be the past life? Well, I'm not saying. Let's say the soul of a dwarf, a past dwarven king in Mondos, then communicating with a living dwarven king, but not really reincarnating, but communicating.
Mhm.
That's another possibility. But I like how Tolkien leaves it this way because it's like real life mysteries. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
hard for
It's
anyone to claim they
so
completely
ripe for
understand
discussion.
reincarnation or the way souls work, or is it people from heaven communicating with us. It's a mystery in many ways.
That the best stories get us to reflect on aspects of our own life and our own world that we find interesting, and Tolkien's writings are really good for this.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I did the last call for anyone in the chat. They have questions. I'm seeing none. Anna, I cannot give you a late pass there in Japan for work. I know there is such a thing. Like if you're on a bus or a train and it breaks down or something, they give you a late pass for work.
Nowadays you just text your boss and you're like we had two typhoons hit on the same day a few days ago,
Mm,
and
wow.
so yeah, like last Thursday and Friday especially, there are loads of train delays, and all you have to do is like take a picture of the train signs where it's like these trains delayed 120 minutes, and you're like, yeah, I might be a little late to the office, it's no big deal.
No, that's cool. So
But no, thank you so much as always for having me and letting me yap so much about these topics, because I love them so much and there's so much to say. Again, you always have to rein me in. I don't mean to talk over
oh, no,
people. I'm
no, no,
just
no,
so
no, no.
excited.
There's no problem at all. I mean, we're happy to be able to ask someone questions, and because there are so many, and that's one thing. I mean, some people may be turned off by it, but I'm not. A work where you're asking a lot of questions gives you plenty of food for thought and talking about it and having these discussions. So
Absolutely.
any final thoughts from Jill or Eliza?
Yeah, I learned an incredible amount today, and I was interrupting you just to ask questions. Like I was just like, okay, where can I ask here? And it was good. It was amazing.
Well, this is basically the time of day, like I guess Monday around this time is the slot that lines up for us. So we're gonna see in the future when we're gonna come back. It may be a little bit, but I always value it when it happens.
But next time we will be talking about the elves awakening, right? The coming
Right.
of the elves and the
Oh yeah.
captivity
I
of
think
elves.
from here on out we're gonna do one section at a time, one chapter, I guess.
And they will get longer.
Yeah, they do. They do. But at the same time, there's so much. Like today, we filled up the time anyway, you know, because it always leads to other things, and it's written that way where like we finally are getting to the awakening of the elves, but it was talked about a lot already so far, and
Mhm.
so there's a lot of foreshadowing. I guess it is a world building book, so you're going to have things layered together and things, and it's good that things are repeated multiple times. Otherwise, it's hard for a reader to remember some things. This helps in the reinforcement, but it still is difficult work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Again, the final word I want to say, the Silmarillion can feel arcane and impenetrable at times. I don't really think it is. But for those who are interested in world building for your own creative work that you're doing, it doesn't have to be fantasy. It can be sci-fi. It can be any other genre. If you're interested in world building and the creation and like making a setting and an environment that feels real and inhabited by the characters that you're making, this is such a masterclass in how to do it. And there's so many good things that you can draw from, not exactly, but you'll see parts of it in other works where you're like, this is archetypal storytelling where you can draw parts of it and say, I'd like to have an aspect of that in my own work. And it works so well. This is, and again, such a masterclass. There's so much to be learned from this, and it can only help your own role as a creative and a writer if that's what you're doing.
And don't be afraid to leave a little bit of mystery, to leave some things where different in-world races or groups think one thing and some think another. It just makes it more realism, and it gives your readers or your fans basically more to talk about, as long as it's done with strength, where they know that, okay, it's not just a mistake on your part or an oversight. It's really inviting you into the mysteries of that world.
In other words, you don't need any midi-chlorians.
No. Great.
Yes.
Great
Oh
thought
my
there, Jill.
gosh. Yes. Oh my gosh. Agreed. And then Anna's like, don't make me go there.
I mean, I wasn't that old when that film came out, but I remember my parents being a little annoyed about it. So
yeah, it was like,
I was annoyed. Oh my gosh. It's like he took the spiritual for me out of Star Wars. Why would you do that?
And it's so clinical that you can just do like a midichlorian count and be like, oh, this person, wow, they have midichlorians in their stool. They must be really the chosen one.
It's horrible. Yeah. Oh my gosh. The Phantom Menace. My head was exploding. Oh.
All right, folks. Well, thank everybody. I mean, I want to thank everybody for joining us today in the chat and everywhere. And, I'll be posting and let you know when we're doing this again. But for now, I appreciate everyone on the panel for being here. Jill and Anna,
I'm so
always
glad
great
that
to talk
Jill's
with
remonetized finally.
Yes, folks.
3
Link is
months
in
of
the
suffering.
description. But Jill, I think you have mod power, so please post your link there just in case there's someone.
Sure, just in case.
I mean, I think everyone has heard of you, but I don't know. Just in case we had someone drop by. Jill is also doing a series of videos, right? They're videos, not live streams, on the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, those are harder to make. The edited content is more work.
I'm really eager to hear the discussions that you and Tiger Stripes are having.
We are nowhere near the Tolkien scholar that you are, but we do our best, and we're having a wonderful time with the text. And I'm gonna have an even better time if I keep up with reading the Silmarillion.
Yeah,
so
Tiger Stripes has a good noggin there, so that's great that you chose her to do this venture with.
Yeah, gotta check out this new series, Jill. Yeah.
Alrighty, so that'll be it. I know I keep saying goodbye, but I like long farewells. So here we go.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.